Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig Haney, and I am the Director of Marketing at Energent. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to learn about the benchmarking principles in the healthcare sector. Benchmarking is a tool that has been used in many industries to understand how buildings, processes, and people compare to each other. The two most important aspects of benchmarking is choosing the proper metrics to compare and ensuring you have access to the relevant data to compare apples to apples. Without these components, benchmarking programs are not able to provide the maximum benefit for participating organizations. We will use today's webinar to explain how to ensure you are choosing the right metrics and have the data available to compare these metrics. We'll also look at providing some best practices from the benchmarking programs. These best practices will look at ways of collecting, comparing, and utilizing the data to maximize benefits for hospitals. This is where benchmarking programs can really focus on providing value beyond just where the particular hospital lies on the curve. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the question tab to the right of the screen and type your questions. We will save some time at the end of the presentation to answer as many questions as possible. This presentation will take about 30 minutes, and we will leave at least 15 minutes for questions that people may have asked throughout the webinar. The webinar will also be recorded and posted on the Energent website. So if you want to refer to the webinar at a later time, you are able to, as well as you're able to forward the link to any colleagues that may be interested in the topic, but unable to attend. So let's begin. Today's webinar will be focused on benchmarking, how to use it, how it's been used in the field by reviewing a local case study, and how you can transfer this knowledge to your staff through best practices. As always, we will leave lots of time for questions at the end of the presentation. So please use the questions tab on the right of your screen to submit these questions, and we will ensure that every question gets answered. Let's start by having a basic understanding of what benchmarking is. Benchmarking is defined as an objective way to compare buildings using key performance metrics. There are two important components in this definition. The first is choosing the proper and most appropriate performance metrics that are relevant for all buildings being compared to in the benchmarking graph. The second component that is vital for the relevant benchmarking tool is to ensure the data is being measured and collected in a consistent manner. These are two components that are consistently being monitored for all participating buildings, then the data collected and the results presented from the benchmarking tool can be very powerful and actionable. There are two fundamental types of benchmarking, longitudinal and cross-sectional. Longitudinal benchmarking compares the same building over time. The results can be used within an organization to compare energy performance throughout the year, identifying different operating levels based on seasonal changes. In cross-sectional benchmarking, buildings are compared to other similar buildings. The results can be used to assess performance relative to peers in the same sector and across other sectors, to track performance against sector performance levels, to identify new best practices for improving building performance, to increase understanding of how to evaluate the energy performance, and to identify high-performance buildings. These comparisons are made possible because of all the data that is being used to make these comparisons is normalized for weather, square footage, type of operations, and for hospitals, the level of care provided. These factors are all included in the development of the energy model. Any type of building can benefit from benchmarking, and here are 6 of the most common values that are attributed directly to the practice. First, it gives energy managers the information needed to determine what energy drivers are important, measurable, and manageable, and which ones they don't have too much control over. Number 2, using those metrics, it helps establish baseline energy consumption and appropriate energy conservation goals. Third, some of these goals might be focused on capital upgrade projects. The proper benchmarking tool can help prioritize these upgrades to have a biggest effect on energy consumption. The real-time information facilitates continuous improvement programs. The new Energy Management Standard, ISO 50001, sees continuous improvement programs as the cornerstone of effective energy management. 5, by comparing these same buildings' energy use over time and mapping specific operational procedures to the same timeline, it can help identify periods of best practice, and then attempts can be made to replicate these operational procedures. Lessons can also be learned from other comparable buildings that are having success in managing energy. For hospitals or jurisdictions that have multiple facilities to manage, benchmarking enables the opportunity to have competitions between buildings and reward good performance since all of the data has been normalized, allowing for apples-to-apples comparisons. Considering all of these aspects of benchmarking, the tool you use must be the right one for you. So let's look at a few of these options. There are many benchmarking tools that have been established to support hospital benchmarking initiatives. The three that we will focus on today is the Environmental Protection Agency's Energy Star tool, the Greening Healthcare Initiative started by the Toronto and Regional Conservation Authority, and Energent's newest application, their hospital benchmarking tool. Let's dive into these tools to see how to take advantage of them. EPA's Energy Star benchmarking tool, called Portfolio Manager, has been around since 2000. Since then, it has been building a database of over 130,000 buildings across North America. These buildings have been included in Portfolio Manager to allow participating sites to be benchmarked against comparable sites in the database. This is a great example of cross-sectional benchmarking. The advantages of Energy Star are the considerable size and scope of the database. Portfolio Manager has been around for over 10 years and has compiled energy information on thousands of buildings since that time. Benchmarking tools are more statistically significant when they have this much data to compare to. Energy Star has brand recognition across multiple sectors, making internal buy-in easy for staff and management as the logo and the concept is familiar. Benchmarking can be done within sectors, such as hospitals, but individual data can also be compared to other industries that may be related. There are a few limitations with the tool set. It can be time-consuming to implement, as all of the historical data must be manually implemented into the online platform. For sites with multiple meters and that want to multiple commodities such as water, gas, electricity, this can be a very daunting task. In the same scenario, to make benchmarking tool relevant, this information must be maintained on a monthly basis by someone internally in the hospital. Finally, the resolution of the data is only monthly, and since it's only inputted at that interval. There are many scenarios in which savings opportunities may not show up on monthly data, and significant savings opportunities are missed, unless the Energy Manager is able to devote the appropriate time and expertise to reviewing and understanding the operations of the hospital at the necessary level of granularity. Energy Star is a very popular tool for commercial buildings and hospitals to use to understand their relative energy performance. But let's look at a couple of other tools that are providing a little different perspective on benchmarking. The Toronto Region Conservation Authority started Greening Healthcare in 2003 with the idea that hospitals could work together to lower energy costs. There are currently 25 hospitals being monitored across Canada, with 23 of them in Ontario. And with these 25 organizations, there are 59 buildings that are currently being monitored. These sites are being monitored through self-reporting of energy use for both heating and cooling, and then these results are presented as cumulative savings and on a benchmarking chart. The Greening Healthcare Initiative has been successful in signing up participants from Ontario, as currently there are 23 hospitals participating in the program. There are also 2 organizations from other provinces included, providing an interesting opportunity to compare hospital consumption in different provinces. The tool provides very simple and concise benchmarking using electricity and thermal equivalents and plots these numbers on a graph, comparing hospitals based on square footage. This presents a very simple and easy way of quickly assessing a hospital's current ranking. To support these hospitals, Greening Healthcare runs webinars and workshops for its members and the general community to encourage best practices for energy conservation programs in the hospitals. There are some limitations with Greening Healthcare. There has not been consistent evidence of savings for those members that are using the tool. Ultimately, these tools are designed to enable hospitals to lower their energy cost, but there hasn't been evidence that this simple, high-level benchmarking achieves this goal. This is often limited by the lack of information available to the Energy Manager or facility operator, as these tools require more data to enable good decisions to ultimately lower energy costs. Finally, the Greening Healthcare tool requires facility operators to input all of the information necessary for the tool to benchmark the data. These self-reporting systems are challenging as many users are unable to input the data each month and the data becomes inconsistent across all participating hospitals. These self-reporting tools are often less expensive programs, but provide little data at the level that produces energy conservation behaviors. The final tool we'll review is Energent's new benchmarking tool. We feel that it is time to upgrade the current benchmarking tools to a level that is necessary to enable energy managers to take advantage of this information to actually reduce energy consumption. An ice cream cone is great, but what if we could upgrade to something even better? What if we were able to take the vanilla approach to benchmarking and add a few toppings to improve the appeal of the tool? Using real-time data, accurate modeling, and a national hospital database, Energent has created that tool that will give energy managers the knowledge they need to make informed decisions about their facility and ultimately come up with an action plan to improve and lower their energy conservation. Energent's tool utilizes their national hospital database to compare information based on weather, regular hospital operations, and a weekend and holiday factor. This information collectively allows energy managers to compare their hospital to the national database based on operations, weekend holidays, and weather, but also understand the cost attributed to each level of benchmarking. Energy managers will understand the importance of separating weather from regular operations of the hospital. This improves their ability to understand how to address energy conservation initiatives from the facility point of view. Finally, this data can be broken down into specific, measurable drivers, giving energy managers more access to data, meaning they can act on specifics quickly and accurately. The two components of Energent's benchmarking tool are operations, which are represented by the columns above the horizontal x-axis, and weather-related energy consumption, which is represented by the columns below the horizontal x-axis. If these two were combined, then we would get the total consumption of the hospital per square foot. Let's take a closer look at each one of these components. This is the graph that is focused on only the operations side of energy consumption. The red line represents the 25th percentile, the blue line represents the 50th percentile, and the green line represents the 75th percentile. This graph is ranked from the worst performers on the left to the best performers on the right. The range of consumption is approximately 28 kilowatt hours per square foot for the worst performers and about 14 kilowatt hours for the best performers. This means that the best performing hospital operates their facility using about 50% of the energy per square foot that the worst performing hospital does. To influence this part of the graph, staff could lower lights, increase temperature set points, and turn computers off at night. The second aspect that affects weather is the effect that weather has on energy consumption. It is important to note that this information has been normalized based on conditions, essentially putting all of the hospitals in the same geographical place. This eliminates the influence that a hospital in Sudbury will consume less electricity to cool the building than a hospital in Windsor. This graph is focused on how much energy is needed to maintain the temperature and humidity set point measured variance in the hospital. We have ranked the facilities from the worst performers on the left again to the best performers on the right. The range of consumption is approximately 8 kilowatt hours per square foot for the worst performers and just over 2 kilowatt hours per square foot for the best. This means that the best performing hospital operates the facility using just 25% of the energy per square foot than the worst performing hospital. This is all normalized for temperature, meaning that regardless of the climate that they're in, the hospitals will be performing at this level. Now, what happens if we put them all together? Bringing these two graphs together give energy managers the new level of visibility into the effect of energy has on hospitals. More importantly, it also shows us how to positively influence change. Ultimately, we want to take this mountain of information that is contained in one graph and turn it into strategic knowledge about the hospital that enables energy managers and facility operators to make great decisions about energy conservation. But how do we do that? Here are a few of the best ways to understand how to take benchmarking information and turn it into knowledge. We can compare how our building is operating in comparison to other buildings. By sharing this information with other facilities, we can enable change. This is the greening healthcare model. We can identify parts of our facility that are doing well or doing poorly. We can look at heating and cooling information to identify equipment that is working well. For example, if our weather-related benchmarking is in the 75th percentile during the winter, but only in the 25th percentile during the summer, then we know that our cooling system must be looked at, but our heating system seems to be working very well. Without this granularity, a hospital may think that they're performing well, say in the 50th percentile, without understanding the different commodities being measured. Finally, hospitals will understand if they are operating at different levels of efficiency depending on the season. So let's take a look at a specific case study which highlights the power of benchmarking. This case study is based on information from a Canadian hospital. This hospital is the worst performer when compared to weather data, consuming almost 8 kilowatt hours of electricity per square foot to manage cooling. This hospital was built recently, so there's some research that needs to be done to understand why a hospital that has a newer HVAC system, a newer BAS, high-quality insulation and windows is performing so poorly for weather. Let's start with how we can improve their performance. Putting all the information from the Energent benchmarking tool, and let's see if we can compare weather-related performance for this hospital. Pulling the specific data for the case study, we can accurately answer the following questions regarding the weather-related energy performance of this hospital. What aspects of the hospital's operation can we identify as a reason for the poor weather performance? If they do improve their weather performance, what does it mean for the bottom line? How does this benchmarking tool help energy managers or facility operators improve the hospital's performance? Let's start by how we can improve their performance. In a newer hospital, there's limited opportunities to improve weather performance. The boilers are new and the HVAC systems are modern and efficient. So how can we affect change in this scenario? Well, here are 3 ideas. Look to maximize BAS performance. In newer building automation systems, the opportunity to customize using temperature and humidity sensors are enormous. With that opportunity to customize comes increased levels of complexity. We would suggest investigating your BAS and understand how the system is scheduled and if a dedicated BAS expert is required to manage this powerful and complex system. There are many opportunities to leverage the power of a BAS, but without the proper attention, it can become an energy waster instead of an energy saver. With improvements in HVAC systems, there has been an increase in the expectation of facility teams to manage the measured variable around set points of the hospital much more closely. Because the system can manage the entire hospital within 1 degree Celsius, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, does this mean that it has to? When there's a narrow band for the measured variable, equipment tends to be cycled on and off frequently. This can cause an increase in energy expenditure as equipment ramps up to temperature, and often these large pieces of equipment are not built to cycle on and off all the time. It can really reduce the life expectancy of large capital equipment. Finally, many hospitals have increased the amount of windows that are installed in the building to encourage natural light within the hospital. In warm summer months, this can cause a significant increase in cooling requirements because the natural light warms the area, but in shaded areas, the temperature sensor might read a significantly lower temperature, so the BAS becomes confused. If this is the case, shades are an inexpensive way of reducing the heat from south-facing windows, yet you can still use some of the natural light that comes in. There are ways to actually quantify the specific effects of these each opportunities for improvement, so if you are interested in finding out more, please let us know. Now we can talk more specifically about the impacts on the hospitals financially if we're able to improve the operations of the hospital with respect to weather. These are specific to electricity for this case study, but the same information can be compared for natural gas as well as in the heating season. If we were able to bring this client down to approximately 5 kilowatt hours per square foot, or just at the 25th percentile of these Canadian hospitals, it would save the customer $21,000 annually. This means that 75% of the hospitals are still operating more efficiently with respect to weather than this hospital, but there still saves them a significant amount of money. If we were able to take them to the 50th percentile, or approximately 4 kilowatt hours per square foot, this would save them $28,000 annually. Finally, if we're able to bring them up to the 75th percentile, or better than 75% of these Canadian hospitals, the client would save an astounding $43,000 every year. These are not insignificant savings, considering there is little to no capital expenditure and it does not affect regular operations of the hospital. Hopefully, this case study highlights the importance of benchmarking in general and the specific power of Energent's benchmarking tool. The Harvard Business Review conducted a research paper on benchmarking best practices across all industries. This was not specific to hospitals, but about benchmarking practices in general. They came up with 5 critical best practices that should be adhered to whenever any organization is looking to begin a benchmarking project. They are: find the critical metrics for your organization. This is such an important step. Ensure you are measuring the important aspects of your hospital's day-to-day operations. Measure and compare based on aspects of your hospital that have a significant impact on your energy use. This could be patient throughput, number of operations or MRIs per day, or other relevant energy-consuming activities. Those metrics fall into the operations side of the model and ultimately dictate your overall energy intensity, or kilowatt hours per square foot. Measure what's needed, not just what's easy. This is important when ensuring the numbers you are looking at are relevant to the knowledge you want to get from the program. If you want to improve your weather-related building performance, ensure what you measure are aspects that are related to weather. For example, number of patients in the hospital is relevant, as an increasing number of people can increase the cooling load that is necessary. Number of procedures or MRIs does not really have an effect on the cooling load of the hospital. Find a happy medium on frequency. Benchmarking on a daily or weekly basis may not get you to provide the results that most facility operators will want. Annually may be good for annual review, but it may not provide enough information to act quickly on changes. Monthly reviews may be the best option for many hospitals to balance the need for good information and the ability to act on this information. Involve people from all levels and all departments. We have said this in many other webinars as well. We need to get people involved. This should be a project that involves many people from different parts of the hospital, as their actions have a direct impact on energy consumption of this hospital. Get their input. More importantly, get their buy-in. It will make benchmarking programs more accurate and more relevant to the entire hospital. Benchmarking can be done by comparing internal metrics as well as to external groups. Each hospital is going to have their own key metrics, and as discussed in the first point, but they may not be the industry standard that multiple facilities are compared to. Both are important and both provide different information to energy managers. Look to be part of external groups, but don't abandon important internal benchmarks in the process. To summarize today's webinar, we have explored the values of benchmarking and how they are relevant to hospitals, particularly in light of carbon and greenhouse reporting requirements that are coming in July 2013. We have explored 3 tools that are currently available to hospitals and how to take advantage of the strengths of these tools. We have talked about how benchmarking is the most valuable when we can take mountains of data and turn it into knowledge to help facility managers make educated decisions. We walked through a Canadian case study that explored new ways a hospital is operating inefficiently and how to move them from a poor performer to a best performer, and what that would mean for the hospital financially. Finally, we went through 5 best practices for benchmarking to help facility managers understand how to maximize their involvement and investment in a benchmarking program. Energent has been a trusted partner in the healthcare sector for many years, providing knowledgeable energy analytics and advice. We have customers across the country that have used Energent to lower cost and improve efficiency. Energent is the first choice when it comes to healthcare energy management information systems. Energent has 2 more webinars planned specifically for the hospital sector. On Thursday, May 31st at 2 p.m., Energent will host a webinar about green teams in the hospital sector and how facility managers can use this tool to engage large components of a hospital staff. On Thursday, June 21st, Energent will host another webinar to discuss the new Ontario Regulations 397-11 and how that will affect all public buildings, including hospitals, in Ontario. We wanted to thank you for joining us on the webinar today. I hope you now have a better understanding of the benchmarking process and how to leverage this for your own hospital. For more information, please visit our website. We have a specific page dedicated to the hospital sector and specifically your needs. You can find out a lot of information of how Energent can help you manage these increasing electricity costs and better manage and understand the overall cost of energy. We will take some time now to answer questions we received during the presentation.